can go ahead and kick it off, Jay.
Well, everybody, thanks for joining us. I want to welcome you to our first Lunch and Learn of the year at the Myriad Innovation Center. Hopefully one of these days we'll be able to do them physically, but for now, Zoom has become pretty much well known and everyone's used to it, so Zoom we will. I wanted to let you know that we have plans to have a different topic every month. And the whole idea is I want to bring resources to entrepreneurs that normally they wouldn't get. So, we have a lot of great resources here. We've got SCORE, we've got the small business development centers. And a lot of times you can get information on how to start a business, how to set things up, how to do this, how to do that. But some of the things that you don't hear are how can you use artificial intelligence to do a patent search so that you can get your product to market faster, or even find out if you have a viable product because maybe somebody's already patented what you think is a new idea. And then I want to talk about crowdfunding. So every month we're going to have a different expert on these different areas here, and we'll let you know in advance what they are. But hopefully this becomes a great resource for entrepreneurs. I plan on doing some additional topics at different times of the month. I want to do one on pitch anything. I'm a big fan of Oren Klaff. He's a really wild guy that does great job on how to pitch things. But then what I want to do is just take one topic of his every event and dive into it, do like a 7-minute video of him giving a talk about how to do one certain part of a pitch, and then just do an open discussion. And really, we want all of these events to be open discussion type events. So if you have any questions, you can put them in chat or raise your hand after William gives his talk. But really what I want to do is welcome you, kind of set the groundwork. And then Heather, if you want to make an introduction to William, we can kick this off.
Excellent. Thank you so much, Jay, for introducing the Lunch and Learn series. We're really excited to partner with you on that. So it is my honor to introduce our guest speaker. He's the Global Account Director for Patsnap. His name is William Daly. And to give you a little bit of kind of an overview on William, he's worked for Patsnap for over 5 years, starting in London in 2015, and then he made the jump and moved to LA in 2017 to open and grow their first North American office. Since then, he's helped expand their Toronto office, which they opened in 2018, and then most recently, he's one of the founding members of the New Life Sciences division. He's worked with customers in Europe, United States, and Australia, and the majority of which are business leaders and R&D professionals who wish to innovate more efficiently and enhance the ROI on their efforts. And he'll tell you a little bit more about Patsnap and how that works. So take it away, William. Thank you so much for being here.
Perfect. Thank you, Heather, and thank you everyone for allowing me to join the call today. Myself and Jay obviously have had some previous discussions around Patsnap and the types of products and services that we offer. I'm just going to go ahead and share my screen here, and I'll provide a bit of context behind Patsnap just to explain, I think, why myself and Jay thought it'd be an ideal time to join the call here. And just before I go directly into Patsnap and kind of who we are, who we work with, I did just want to raise this one article, which is fairly interesting, and it kind of explains why Patsnap exists. It's an article by the Harvard Business Review, and it discusses, or it poses the question of whether research and development is getting harder or if companies are actually getting worse at it. And the reason they've come to this question is if we look at historical data over the past 3 decades, the returns on R&D spending have actually declined by about 65%. And a lot of this comes from the massive information there is that's continually growing over time and very difficult to keep a pulse on. So Patsnap, for anyone who's maybe not familiar, maybe this is the first time hearing the name Patsnap, we are a software as a service organization that applies AI and machine learning to the world's innovation data. So our core business model since we were founded in 2007 has been providing intelligence and providing data to innovators and R&D focused organizations. Now, as Heather mentioned, I've been part of the newly formed life sciences division for coming up to 12 months now. So primarily doing my work with medical device and healthcare companies. And what this kind of talks about, or at least the premise of Patsnap, is this innovation intelligence. So trying to understand what information do companies require to help them drive forward R&D and to focus their efforts on the most viable projects. So we've coined the term R&D intelligence, if you will, and kind of looking to take a huge amount of information and data and put it into something that's digestible for startups, for incubators, and of course for some of the world's leading companies. So since we secured our Series D round of funding from Sequoia, we now have a multitude of different products for our customers. Just to give an idea who our customers typically are, of course, some of the major brands have allowed us to kindly use their logos. Typically, when you look at these companies like GW Pharmaceuticals and Tesla and the likes, we are supporting the divisions when it comes to research, when it comes to engineering. And how we're doing that is, well, we have a very sophisticated software that scans across multiple data points and then tries to provide some analysis and insights from that. So just to give a snapshot of this, these are just some of the data points, some of the information that we collate, and we provide this in a real-time software platform. So anytime you may be working on a new project, a new idea, you may be looking for potential investment or looking at what research funding has been acquired, Patsnap can be the go-to tool to help collate and analyze this information. So you'll see a lot of this information that we do acquire through different sources, through different partnerships. One of the key data points that you probably notice at the top here is patents, which is the lifeblood of the business for many of our customers. And again, we've applied our own AI and machine learning algorithms to this information to help you understand that information. So you don't need to be an IP attorney or legal expert to understand the information. About 80% of technical information can only be found within patents. So it's an incredibly useful resource, but something that a lot of companies are not always tapping into at the early stages of some of their projects. So just to give an idea what Patsnap looks like, it gives the ability to search for any technology, topic, company, inventor, and it will draw back the information that you see around these data points. So for example, I've just done a very quick search here on a broad term like autonomous vehicle. Chose this as it's probably quite a hot topic at the moment. What you're seeing here is the ability to search for autonomous vehicle, and it will identify every single patent in every jurisdiction globally that contains that phrase. Now from here, we can get some insightful information into what are the latest patent filings and who are some of the major companies within this space. So you're able to quickly identify any potential competitors, partners, or organizations operating within any space by tapping into Patsnap, and because of the partnerships we have with the various patent jurisdictions. Now, just to take this a step further, something we've tried to continually focus on over time is providing analysis of this information, because data can be useful, but it's not useful unless you can actually use that information. So what we're seeing here is a data snapshot or a quick summary of the autonomous vehicle market. So if we're looking at any of this information from an interactive standpoint, we can understand where the patents have been filed, who are some of the top patent filers, has there been any litigation or licensing information, and so forth. So the way in which Patsnap works is because it's all in real-time data, it's an interactive tool that you can tap into and have at your fingertips. when you're involved with different projects, different topics. So if I was to quickly drill down into some of this information to show you what you can see from this, we can identify the top 10 patent filers within this space for autonomous vehicle in the space of about 2 or 3 seconds, as you've seen we've done there. And then furthermore, answering some questions that you may have around not just who are the top patent filers within a particular space, but if I'm looking at a particular technology or invention that we may be looking to patent, well, are there any emerging companies or new entrants within this space that we may look to as potential partnerships or acquisitions, or of course, investors as well? All of the information that you see is directly linked back to the source of where we've pulled this from. So again, using that machine learning to draw up some of this analysis where it will clearly explain what you're seeing here and how you can use this information for some of your business efforts. Just on the left of my screen, I won't go through everything here today, but you will notice that there's a great deal of information around what litigation has occurred to mitigate some of the risks there, along with licensing deals and agreements, if that's an avenue that you may be exploring for some of your own projects. Now, in a very similar way to how we've ran this search through Patsnap, looking at patent information, as shown on this screen, there is a wealth of information that we also link back outside of patents. So, for example, as you type in this search bar at the top, similar to a Google search, any search effort, any topic, any company, we're now tapping into the wealth of information that you see on the left-hand side here. So we've handpicked different partnerships and different data sources to collate market reports, VC investments, grant funding, what academic institutes are working on these technologies to give you that full market picture or landscape, if you will, of what's happening within a particular space. And because the beauty here is that we are covering multiple industries and multiple data points, rather than using autonomous vehicle, you can look at something very specific into your space. And what you'll notice just on the left is it gives you the ability to jump to this different information. So if we need to validate some of the market growth, the compound annual growth rate, where certain industries are projected to go, you have access to this wealth of information around market reports, as we can see about 990 related to autonomous vehicles. And then furthermore, if we are looking to secure investment like many of our clients are, we can identify just through the VC investments who is invested in who and for how much. So understanding precedents within a particular space. Now you'll see how recently some of these articles have been updated, and we can see who is invested in who for how much just by looking at the investment type and so forth on the right-hand side. So there are multiple use cases to Patsnap. Of course, some of them are just used for validating projects, making sure that there's no clear hurdles or they're not wasting resources or reinventing the wheel per se. But for some organizations that may have set projects in place or have patents in place, they're then looking for commercialization opportunities where they can tap into Patsnap and understand what information has been disclosed from different sources. So there's a lot of information you can tap into here. I'm not going to delve into absolutely everything. As you can see, we've tried to create an incredibly simplistic approach to this. So if you are looking for the latest news articles or you're looking to set up alerts on this information, that can all be done through the platform itself. And we do offer the service side of the business as well. So helping you get up to speed with the different tools and projects, but what are the best practices and how they can help drive forward some of those efforts. So I just want to take a pause there. I know I've done probably a lot of talking, but just curious if there's any questions or feedback so far. Thanks, Heather.
William, I have a question. What is the cost of using Patsnap?
Yeah, so we are a subscription service. The pricing usually varies based upon the number of users. So it is a login service, the length of the subscription, and also the level of access. So we have a few different tools. So we typically can provide proposals once we understand the customer, what their needs are, and how they'll be using the platform. We put it together. But it does vary client to client, industry to industry, unfortunately. So it's quite difficult to provide an accurate price for each client.
Is there a cost for the subscription?
Yes. So the subscription is based upon the number of users. So if how many logins you would require for your business, and then also the level of access for that. So some of our clients will be paying less than $10,000 for a very limited subscription for, let's say, 12 months. Others will be paying more than 6 figures if they have it spread out across an engineering team.
Good. Thank you.
Just curious for everyone on the line, if you typically have any kind of go-to databases or tools that you'll look at this information. Does anyone typically look at patents or non-patent literature, scientific journals?
Well, William, if you want, you can always just use me. You and I have been through this before.
Sorry, Jay, could you repeat that?
Yeah, I was saying that, if nobody else raises their hand, I'll be the guinea pig. You and I have been through this before, but if we could do something on around genomic sequencing or something like that.
Yeah, absolutely. So what you're seeing here is basically the entry point for Patsnap, where you can type in any word or phrase. So if we were to type in genomic sequencing, we're now going to identify every patent that has used the term genomic sequencing in every jurisdiction. So as we click search, it should take about 3 seconds to us to pull back the results. And then what you'll be able to see is how many patents exist that contain genomic sequencing as an exact phrase. And then in front of us, we're now seeing them in order of relevancy. So how many hits of the term genomic sequencing that you'll see already highlighted in the titles. Now, just to the left, you're probably familiar with many of these groups because these are the most active organizations within this space. And if we want, we can click into Insight or Bayer Healthcare, Genentech, and get a full portfolio analysis of what are some of their latest inventions that they filed for. This is not just granted patents, this is applications. So you can see probably 18 months ahead of when they might actually do a public release or a statement on some of these inventions or technologies, because of course they haven't entered any of the clinical trials or so forth. Now you could do the exact same within the discovery piece of the platform, which again looks at these data points. So if we were to take the exact phrase of genomic sequencing, we're now identifying some of the related market reports, some of the highly relevant companies within this space. So if I need to understand from a competitive intelligence standpoint, well, who are some of the most active organizations when it comes to genomic sequencing, and not just looking at patent data, but looking at press releases, looking at investments they've made. You can tap into this information through the company data point that you see here. Now on the left-hand side, we've tried to make it very clear and very easy to refine and sift through this information, because a big challenge is just the amount of information that you're left with. So as a business, if you have a focus on a specific jurisdiction, or you may be looking for early stage startups or mature companies, the left-hand side is kind of your compass or your direction of how you can sift through this. Now, if we were to take the very first company here, Illumina, we can get some information and data behind the company itself. So you'll notice just on the left here, a full breakdown menu of the patents within their portfolio, indicating what are some of the latest developments that they are working on as a business, and then being able to actually click into and understand the technologies detailed within the patents, as well as any investments that they may have made, as you might have seen with Grail recently, for example.
William, I get a feeling that this Patsnap would be used by bigger companies and not small businesses. If I have a small business person that I'm mentoring and he wants to develop a patent, he wouldn't necessarily go here. Is that correct or incorrect?
So it's used a lot by a lot of small companies where they're trying to offset some of the costs that come with IP. As a lot of you probably know, if you have gone through the process, there's often a lot of back and forth with legal counsel. There's educating them on the ideas, there's paying them to do some of these searches. So Patsnap essentially provides the tool where you can do some of this initial research in-house. So not having to utilize law firms or patent attorneys for that. Now, that is on the patent side of things, but if we look outside of patents, as you're seeing here, this is providing a full kind of competitive or market landscape of what's happening. So, of course, patents is one piece of information that we use, but what other data do our clients need when they are working through some of their projects, when they're trying to understand which are viable and which are not? Well, you're having the ability to tap into what VC investments are happening, what emerging startups or companies are within this space, as well as market reports to validate where that market is going. So I'd say a large part of our business does come from startups, but it depends, of course, kind of how focused they are on some of the research projects and what information they require for that. I mean, do you typically look into any of this information, Michael?
One thing I wanted to,
I said I haven't been familiar with Patsnap until today.
Michael, one of the reasons that I started talking with Patsnap is I think this could be a great resource for Myriad Innovation Center clients or tenants. And I wanted to bring this to everybody's attention, not just for the individual, but for the community, because I know that Patsnap does work with a lot of accelerators and incubators. William, could you tell us a little bit more about that?
Yeah, absolutely. So a big part of our business model has been trying to work with more startups and incubators. We do have NDAs in place with a lot of our clients, given the nature of the information. But personally, we've tried to focus on putting a lot of early stage companies and a lot of incubators who work with those companies on a level playing field as some of those large companies who have armies of patent attorneys in-house. Now, with that, I mean, it's something that has trickled down from our CEO. So our CEO, Jeffrey, started Patsnap in 2007, and he's named Entrepreneur of the Year in Singapore back in 2018. So it's the biggest focus for him of how can we serve not just the Teslas and the IBMs of the world, but how can we help some of the emerging startups? So we have things in place from a service standpoint where a lot of small companies don't have the bandwidth essentially to use Patsnap in-house. We offer services from Patsnap for them. And in addition to that, we have subscription options available for incubators where they can share subscription amongst a few companies to spread out the cost and provide them with this. Jay, was there anything else you wanted me to share?
Well, I do have another question. Uh, when I'm building a patent portfolio, I'm generally looking at, not only what I have, but where I need to go next. And since you have kind of an evolved system for looking at things, are there ways to find holes in a, say, a patent portfolio, or is there any way for somebody using Patsnap to identify areas of opportunity?
Yeah, absolutely. So when we're looking at the Patsnap platform, there's a lot of different functions within here and analysis. Just towards the very top, you notice there's a few tabs. So analyze, landscape, insights. The landscape in particular is a visual way of understanding the patent landscape to assess areas of high risk as opposed to opportunity. So just to explain what you're seeing here, this is our own proprietary system for creating a 3D topography on that patent information. So every patent that you saw on that previous results page for genomic sequencing has now been placed onto this 3D interactive map. And the reason it is 3D, or it's this visual approach, is because the white snowy peaks are areas of high saturated pattern activity, whereas the lower lying areas or blue oceans are indicative of less development. So how this is being constructed is, again, using some of our own machine learning algorithms, where they've looked at the patents in detail and they've clustered them together based upon the commonality of words and phrases. So that's why you'll see patents spaced together in these areas. So what we can see from here is which areas are highly congested in terms of these white snowy peaks, where we may wish to stay away from, and where are some of the lower lying areas of these potential white space analysis. Now, if we look to the left, and firstly, we're interested in understanding where does Illumina's patents lie, we can identify them and color coordinate them, as we can see. So now we get a sense of, in terms of genomic sequencing or this particular space, we can understand where the majority of Illumina's patents lie and get a quick sense of some of these technologies by reviewing some of the words and phrases mentioned. Now, from here, you can actually take some of your own invention disclosures, some of your own ideas, and validate them against this landscape. So what I mean by that is you have the ability to actually plot on some of your own ideas and inventions. So if I was to take this group of text, so you can see highlighted on the left, I can label this as my idea. And now what this will do is it will plot an arrow to show where this particular idea would sit if we were to pursue it. So as you see this arrow pop up, this red arrow, it would indicate that based upon the words and the text used within that invention, it will fall within this space. So now we're using AI to hopefully pinpoint some of the most relevant patents or those within most close proximity. So just giving you at least an early opportunity to assess which of your ideas must be most viable and where they would fall within the context of this genomic sequencing landscape.
I have a couple questions on this, William. First of all, the size of the dots, does that mean that there's more than one patent on the same thing, or?
So every dot indicates one patent. So you can click on and draw up these patents. So it's just one patent per circle or per dot.
Got it. I just see some bigger dots in there, so I was wondering if there was any relevance to the size of the dot.
There wouldn't be. It may just be my screen.
Okay.
And now if you just look to the bottom left as well here, Jay, you'll notice there's a tab for licensing. So we've actually layered on all of the licensing agreements that have taken place around genomic sequencing, indicated by these blue ribbons. So something that is typically a very kind of painstaking task of trying to understand what's the most relevant prior art, we've tried to put it into a more visual approach and then help you to really pinpoint which of those are the most viable Now, this landscape is just one of the many tools you can find within Patsnap. In fact, I would say probably one of the most valuable tools that we've designed is our semantic search that you see here. So the semantic search itself allows you to take a group of text, a description of technology, even an invention disclosure. You can simply paste that full text into this box and click search. And what the system will do in the space of 5 seconds, it will analyze the wording and terminology you've used, matching it against synonyms and familiar phrases, and drawing back a list of what we've identified as the most relevant and most similar patterns to your idea in the space of about 5 seconds. Now, why that is so valuable is that we're applying that AI machine learning specifically to your invention. So identifying which patents are most relevant in order of relevancy, firstly, to understand, are there any clear hurdles to this invention to stop us moving forward, or are there any potential companies that we may wish to partner with, license from, and so forth. Now, if you do own some patents today as well, you can paste in the patent number to this box. So if you're trying to identify what other technologies exist that are similar to our patent that we've already filed for, just use the patent number and it will identify a list of the most similar patents. But as I mentioned, patents are just one source of information within Patsnap. What we deem to be kind of R&D intelligence have to look outside of patents as well. So when it comes to scientific journals, when it even comes to news articles, tech blogs, investments, this is the type of information that our clients need at the early stages of R&D to ensure that they are focusing on projects that are viable, that are going to drive an ROI, and essentially validating if there's a viable market for them.
It looks like we do have a question from the chat. What might be your dream business to sign up with in terms of what you offer? Are there any businesses in our local area like Marietta that you would want to work with?
Yeah, great question. I know I've already spoken with Jay about looking at working with some of his businesses when it comes to SimpleSeek and also Marietta Genomics. But because of the tools we have, definitely the life sciences sector is a big market for us. So I've had the pleasure of working with groups ranging from Sangamo, Medtronic, Genentech, some of these big organizations. But for a lot of the startups, has been a big focus for us lately as we try to drive this market. We do have some other tools, and I don't want to go into too much detail here as it may not be relevant for this call, but we do have tools to help with chemical structure searching and also DNA sequence searching as well. So for companies that are, of course, involved with small molecules or biologics as well. I know I've gone a little bit over the time here, so happy to take any questions if we have a bit of time left.
For those that want to ask a question, feel free to just type it in, or you can raise your hand or just jump in.
Looks like
No
you
problem.
covered the gamut.
Fantastic.
William, I want to thank you for joining us for this Lunch and Learn today. This will be recorded, and we'll be starting to put recordings of these episodes up on the website as additional resources for people as we go forward. Really appreciate it, William. You and I will talk about how we can get Patsnap as a resource for the Innovation Center. And in the meantime, I want to wish everybody a happy lunch.
Fantastic. I really appreciate you you inviting me here, Jay, and thank you, everyone. Hope it was insightful. And if you do have any questions, of course, Jay has my contact details.
Thank you, William. And Jay, thank you for starting these new sessions.
Great. If there are any topics that you want information on, please let me know.
Will
And you
do.
can reach me through Heather or through the interface here.
Will do.
Thanks, everybody.
Thanks. Bye-bye.